What's up, crew? Welcome back to Libertalia Game Supply. Today we're going to take a look at this cleaned up version of Goblin Biker Burning Abyss Phantom Knight. I posted a little combo about a week ago now with a preliminary version of the list. There was some stuff that I wanted to tighten up, and so here it is. Basically, I've just narrowed down what I felt was absolutely necessary of each of the engines, the BA, the Bikers, and the Phantom Knights, and then filled it in with some other stuff that I think would be necessary to keep it at least a little bit competitive. I think that it's a pretty powerful deck, but there are definitely faults within it. And one of those main faults is that you're really just basing all of your combos around a normal summon being Tour Guide or Torn Scales, and the Torn Scales is searchable, the Tour Guide much less so. I guess you have Scarm, but that's super slow now, and so you're just kind of hoping for luck of the draw. Now, that's not to say that the deck doesn't do anything unless you open one of those two cards. Everything in here is an extender, and so you can still make a lot of your plays if you open a couple of them. It's the cleanest when you open a Tour Guide or a Torn Scales, and we'll run through a few of those combos at the end here. For the BA engine, it's double Graph, double Seer, and then one of each of the useful effects that you either are going to send off of Beatrice, as far as the Farfa Banish, the Calcab Bounce of the back row, or the Alich Effect Negation, or the one Scarm for the search in the end phase. If you happen to use like Cherubini to dump something and you opened these, so you didn't maybe you needed to use one of their effects to summon itself, and so now you can't use its effect when it gets dumped or something along those lines. The Scarm search is still nice. End phase can get you a Tour Guide, any of the other BAs, the Merciless, so it's a decent little search, but even then I could see cutting this and just playing the relevant effects for Beatrice plus the little engine here. For the Bikers, we got triple Dug, one Merciless, one Clutter, and one Boon. This just felt the cleanest and also the most concise. Dug is so good, just giving you that search for the spell, because this spell is unbelievable, the best version of Rhoda that's ever been made. The rest of them are good because they can summon themselves, they can summon each other, and they give you, for instance, the Merciless can give you a body 3 times in a turn if you were to open up that Tour Guide. And once again, I'll show you those combos at the end here, but it never really felt necessary to use more than one of each of these other ones. I had 2 of these in here, but it just doesn't matter if you draw it. If you happen to draw one of these that you would be searching off of the arrival, you just grab a different one instead, and the combo goes off the same, and you can get the same crazy board. For the Phantom Knights, pretty standard here. Double Torn Scales, double Cloak, triple Boots, the free body, also kind of a free body plus a Foolish Burial, and then this is just a Searcher. And then the trap lineup is also pretty standard there. Triple Fogblade, one Shade Brigandine. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? For our hand traps, I was able to fit in 6 slots, so triple Ash, triple Veiler. I was even considering just going Nibiru here instead of Veiler, because this deck sells pretty well under Nibiru, even if you get Nibiru'd, or if you end up having a Nibiru yourself when your opponent's going off just to stop a disaster from happening. You get quite a few effects out of the graveyard that you can take advantage of, and so it might not be a bad choice there. And then our spells, the triple Arrival, it's that search for a Biker plus the special summon of that Biker if you can detach material from a monster on the field, plus it can put a Biker back in your hand from the graveyard if you banish it. So absolutely insane. If the Bikers do anything in the meta, this is definitely going to be getting a hit. And for our one-ofs, we've got the one Rhoda for all of the Phantom Knights, the one Burial for pretty much the entire deck, and the one Call By just in case. If you see it, excellent. If you don't, you can kind of play through hand traps all right. Unless, of course, you were to get negated on your Tour Guide or something. It makes it way harder to play through that stuff because a lot of these need a little bit of setup at the very least. But nonetheless, it does all right through hand traps. And then the extra deck, we had to narrow down to just the bare minimum of everything. So one Cherubini, one Rusty, one IP, one SP. This, I wanted to cut it just because the SP is so expensive, but you got to in this deck. It's such a nice finishing touch on a board to give you 2 extra interrupts. You got to do it. The one Beatrice, the one Dante. You really don't need the Dante for the mill. The Dante is there as either a middle point to get to the Beatrice, because we're not playing that other Goblin Biker spell that can turn him into level 6s to summon it hardstyle, or you're going to put it on the board and use its materials as fodder to summon your Bikers. The mill, I guess, you can use, like obviously you can get something out of it, but for the most part, your Graph and your Seer, you're searching off of your Cherubini to get to the Graph and then summon the Seer, so you're burning both of those effects off your Cherubini summon, and the rest of them you're not really looking to dump anyway, and so it's really just a source of material for everything else to get to use its effect. The only double up here at the big Gabunga, I think this one is absolutely necessary too, getting you that search on summon, getting you that steal. It's really easy to make because it's generic. That's also relevant because we're playing playing the F-Zeros, a lot of times you can make that F-Zero pretty easy with like a spent Gabunga and a Levier, and then just make a new Gabunga to still get that steal. The one Ashura King, if you get stopped, you can usually push into 3 bodies and not quite get to 4. And so ending on that Ashura King is nice because it has 3 materials on it, so you have fodder for the Goblin Bikers to summon themselves and then like trigger the Gabunga, and then it's also got that negate on it, so really nice card. And then I have been back and forth on whether or not I want to keep the Break Sword package in here. Going second, it is nice. This is pretty much a double pop lineup. So you would go Break Sword, pop itself in something else, summon back 2 Phantom Knights, make them 4s, turn in a Raider's Knight, and then rank up into the Stranger Falcon to get another pop. I do like that. It is pretty clean and pretty simple. You can get through it without needing a whole lot of resources. The other options I just feel aren't quite as good. You can go Arc Rebellion Dragon, which can boost itself up by the total attack of all the monsters on the board, and then negate the effects of all the face-up monsters, which is decent, but if you play into any back or hand traps, it's not nearly as good. And then the other one here is better than the Arc Rebellion, I think, the Dark Requiem Xyz Dragon. It can target a monster, change its attack to 0, gain that monster's attack, so a similar thing. And then if your opponent's monster activates an effect, you can detach a material to negate and destroy that monster. The problem is it needs to have the Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon under it as material for it to do all those things, which means it takes up another extra deck slot, and you need to play the rank up in the main deck, and that absolutely didn't feel worth it because this is a very tight main deck here. As far as everything else goes, the reason I stayed away from these rank 3s down here, their effects are decent, but they're number monsters, meaning you can't use them for F-Zero, and they're not good enough to leave on the board by themselves, I don't feel. The extra BA stuff just didn't feel worthwhile. You're pretty much just using BA as an engine to get to the other things and not as like an actual end board in itself. And then you could play the Ghost Trick Shot with the Alucard and double Angel of Mischief in order to go into F-Zero off of 1 summon, but once again requires 3 more extra deck slots plus a main deck slot getting eaten up, and you can go F-Zero plenty easily without doing this and get most of your extra deck back, so chose not to do that either. Now we'll get into a few combos here. I'll show you what you can do with a Tour Guide, a Torn Scale plus a discard, and then we won't go over the combo I put in the other video. I'll just link that down below if you're interested in it, but it's Tour Guide plus any BA monster, and then at the very end we will go through if you were to open an extra extender. So Tour Guide plus a BA plus an extender or 2 extenders or whatever, getting you that extra body. Doesn't change the number of negates, it can just change the way that you set up the negates. Alright, so for combo number 1 here, we're going to start off with just the 1 Tour Guide to set up a pretty nice board off of 1 card. So we'll normal summon that Tour Guide. We're going to special summon the Merciless off of that for the effect. And then we're going to go into our big Gabunga. This is the way a lot of your plays are going to start if you open the right cards. On summon, Gabunga is going to get that search. We're going to grab Doug, best one. Doug is going to special summon itself. We can detach either because you'll end up having detached both by the time you end up needing the Merciless out of the graveyard. And then we'll get the effect of Doug. We're not going to use, this is the effect of Steal that is going to keep asking us for, so we'll just keep ignoring that. Doug is going to search for the Arrival, and then we're going to use that Arrival, and we're going to search the Sploder, Sploder, whatever they changed his name to, and then we'll use that second effect of Arrival, detach the other material from a Gabunga to summon the Sploder. Sploder is then going to get the effect on summon to special summon one out of the graveyard, which is our Merciless. We'll ignore that Gabunga again, and Merciless is going to hit the field. We're then going to overlay for the Dante. The Dante mill is not important, like I mentioned before. We just need to make sure we're using the Merciless plus whatever to make this Dante. We're going to just mill 1 so that we're not messing up any of the searches or whatever for the sake of the demonstration here. Because it's unshuffled, it'll just be a Tour Guide. But you can mill 3, you can mill 1. You just need to detach the Merciless so it's in the graveyard, and then we're going to use the Merciless that we just put in the graveyard to put itself back on the board by detaching that other material from Dante. We now have our 2 3s on board to make a Cherubini. So we'll go right into Cherubini using Sploder and Merciless, and then we'll use that Cherubini effect. We're going to dump a Graph, special summon a Seer. We'll target, you can target the Dante. I guess if you're going second, you can get this Dante up a little bit bigger, but it doesn't matter here. We're going to assume we're going first. We'll summon the Seer, and then we're going to link the Seer off with the Cherubini to make the Rusty Bardish. And then that Seer effect in the graveyard is going to give us the Cherubini back because it's our only target that will not kill itself. We'll then use that Rusty effect. We'll send the Cloak. We'll search for our 1 Shade. Put it in the back row here, and then we'll use that Cloak we just sent to banish itself and search for the Boots. Then we're going to get them both on the board. So Boots will summon itself because we already have the Rusty. The Shade will summon itself from the back row, and then we're going to link them away into an IP. We'll then banish the Boots for its effect to search. We're going to grab a Fog Blade, and then we'll go ahead and set that Fog Blade right in the back row there to finish up the board here. And we'll put one more negate up here using our Gabunga and our Dante. We'll put the F-Zero up here, Topic F-Zero, and then we're going to set ourselves up a little bit for the following turn. So Arrival is going to detach our Dante from our F-Zero, and then we're going to get a return. We're going to grab the Doug, because then on our next turn you can special summon the Doug and search another copy of Arrival, and then Dante can return one, whichever one you like. Doesn't really matter. You're probably not going to need it for anything necessarily. It won't be able to live anyway unless your board gets completely wiped, so we'll grab the Seer because it doesn't make a difference. But you have the IP with an extra material here to make the SP, so that's 2 interrupts with the SP, a third with the Fog Blade, and a fourth plus the steel with the F-Zero off of the 1 tour guide. For our board setup with just the 1 Torn Scales, you just need a Torn Scales plus anything you can discard, so we just pick something that is a useless discard here. And we'll start off normal summoning that Torn Scales. We'll activate the effect, discard our whatever, dump the Cloak. Cloak is going to activate, we'll banish, we'll search the Silent Boots, and then the Boots will put itself on the board here, and we got our 2 level 3s to get us rolling. We're going to go right into Cherubini this time to get our 2 boys in the graveyard here. We're then going to use our Boots effect early to search the Shade, and then off of that banish, Torn Scales will put itself back on the board, so we'll do that also. Then we'll get our standard Cherubini play here. We're going to dump the Graph, target itself. We're going to use the Graph to special summon the Seer. So Seer is going to go into a zone that Cherubini is pointing to. And now we're going to make a Levier using our 2 level 3s, our Torn Scales and our Seer. And we'll get them out of the way so that we have our zones open. We're going to use this Levier, we're going to detach the Seer, and we're going to special summon one of them. It doesn't really matter which one. We'll just grab the Cloak for now, throw it on the board. Seer's effect's going to activate to get us a special summon. We'll put the Graph on the board in a zone that Cherubini is pointing to once again. And now with our 2 3s, we're going to make our Gabunga so we can get into our Goblin Rider stuff. We'll use that Gabunga effect on summon. We'll grab our Doug, and then we're going to use our Doug to summon itself. I suppose you could detach from anywhere. At this point, all of our effects that we're detaching are spent. Doug on summon, we'll get our search. That's really all we're after here. We're going to grab Arrival, and then right here we're going to go a little cute with it. We're going to go F-Zero using Gabunga and Levier, throw it off to the side here, get the big F-Zero going, and then we're going to use our Arrival. We're going to search the Sploder. Then we're going to use that second effect to special summon the Sploder, detach the Gabunga specifically because the Sploder can put it right back on the board. So we still have that removal available to us. We'll stick them right here next to Best Buddy F-Zero. We're then going to use that Shade we searched earlier. We'll set it, and then we'll activate it and summon it, and then we're going to go into our Rusty Bardish. Rusty is coming out just to get us to a Fog Blade. So what you dump doesn't matter. I usually just go with the extra Cloak in case the other one's still banished for whatever reason, and then you still have the search for the Boots on the following turn. And then we'll link right into our IP here using the leftover guys we got. And now off of your Torn Scales, you have the double interrupts here, plus a third off of the Gabunga, a fourth off of the Draco Future, and a fifth off of the Fog Blade. And the way we're going to get into this IP is once you pass turn, we have the Sploder and Graveyard already, and during your opponent's main phase, you can just detach one from the F-Zero, special summon it. Now you have that spare body on board. That also would trigger the Gabunga, so you can trigger that effect at any point during your opponent's main phase, and then also have the banish and then the temporary banish, so nice little setup there. And for the last one here, we're just going to do an extension of the little 2-card combo shown in the previous video, linked down below. Tour Guide plus NEBA plus an extender of some sort. We grab Sploder here. It is a one of in the deck and not really the most likely that you draw it, but if you have any other level 3 extender, you can do a pretty similar board. So we're going to start off with that Tour Guide. Tour Guide will special summon from the deck. We're going to grab the Merciless. It's just your best Tour Guide target at this point with the Goblin Bikers. We'll use our 2 monsters to go into our Gabunga. Gabunga on summon is going to get that search. We're going to grab Doug, just your best search off of Gabunga every single time. Doug is going to special summon itself. Once again, does not matter what we detach because they'll both be in the graveyard in no time. but we're going to get that search off of Doug, grab that Arrival to our hand, and then right away Arrival's hitting the board. Arrival's going to search. Since we have the Sploder in hand already, we're going to grab Boom Mock, whatever, and then we get that special summon by detaching the other material from Gabunga. Now right here, because we have the Sploder, we're going to put that on the board instead, and then we're going to get that Sploder effect to get the Merciless out of the graveyard, and then when Merciless hits the board, it's going to grab the extra copy or the extra Goblin Biker in our hand, so we'll put the Mock on board. The reason this is all relevant is because the Mock and the Merciless have not yet used their own effects to summon themselves, so they're both going to hit the board again. Now we'll get into the standard stuff here. We're going to get the Cherubini on board. Cherubini is going to use its effect to dump the Graph. Graph is going to get the effect to special summon the Seer. And we put our 2 Goblin Bikers in the graveyard that can still summon themselves at some point, so we're all set up there. We're going to make ourselves a Dante with Seer and whatever you feel like, does not matter whatsoever. And then once again, we'll use this Dante to mill, but we need to just detach the Seer. That's what we're after. We'll mill 1 once again. Doesn't make a difference. And then that Seer effect is going to activate, giving us a Graph back on the board in this empty zone we got. We'll go ahead and make our Rusty Bardish using our Graph and our Cherubini. The standard Rusty Bardish stuff here, we will send the Cloak, set the Shade, have that extra body loaded up. We're going to use the Cloak in order to search for the Boots. And then right away we're going to special summon Boots. They're all right up on board there. We'll use the 2 3s we got on board to make a Leviair. We'll use that Leviair to get ourselves an extra body right away here. We only got the Cloak banished, so we'll get that one. We'll go ahead and make our Beatrice here. We've got a Dante, we've got a BA in hand, so Beatrice is hitting the board, and then we won't use that Alich effect right now. Because we've got the extra material on Beatrice, we can go ahead and summon our Merciless using a material. I guess it doesn't matter which one you use, but we want to use the Dante just so we can get something recycled off of it, get a little plus off of it. So we'll get that Dante to recycle the Cherubini. It's a pretty important card. Even if you're not sending BA monsters, it can set up your graveyard for some other stuff, so I like putting that one back usually off with the Dante. Now using the 2 3s we've got, we're going to make another copy of Gabunga here, because we're going to use this one to make an F-Zero in a moment. Just making sure we're using anything other than Beatrice's material. We're going to go ahead and summon our Boom Mock out of the graveyard. So we'll detach the Sploder from the Leviair. It doesn't matter, we just want the extra body. Now I'll use our spent Gabunga and our Leviair to go into our F-Zeros. Pretty standard setup there. Leviair is just a really nice in-between to get you to an F-Zero with some stuff that you've already used up for the turn. We're going to use our Shade to get another body, and then we'll link into the IP. So we got that standard set up already, and then we're going to use the Boots in order to search for our Fog Blade to get another interrupt here, and we'll go ahead and set that bad boy. And now you could use this extra Arrival here. You could detach, want to put something back in your hand. I would say not really worth it because you have enough in your graveyard to trigger this effect off of graveyard special summons. But what you have off of the 3 cards is 6 interrupts, being 1, 2, 3, 4 when you summon the SP, 5 being either a negate, a banish, or a bounce of a spell or trap, with the 6th interrupt being the Fog Blade, and so unless you get board wiped, you've set yourself up for a pretty nice win there. So thanks for hanging out, checking out some of these combos. If you got other ideas, other techs, maybe some interesting ideas for the extra deck, leave them down below. I'd love to hear it. This deck has been super fun, and it feels like it's going to be pretty cheap. Most of the stuff is pretty cheap right now even. I think the secret rares being Arrival and Gabunga are only like maybe $8 pre-sale at the moment. I'm recording this on the day before worldwide release, and I think the Gabunga is like $5 and everything else is maybe $3 or less. So very cheap deck at the moment apart from the SP, unfortunately. I apologize, but happy deck building. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Goodbye.